This month, November, is World Vegan Month, and it begins with World Vegan Day on the 1st of the month. And the theme this year is One World, Many Lives. I'm delighted to say hello again to a good friend of ours on the show. She's the founder of Go Vegan World. She's well known for Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary too. Sandra Higgins, welcome back to Late Lunch.
Lovely to hear from you, Gerry. Thank you for having me on.
Not at all. One world, many lives really does sum up the ethos, doesn't it, Sandra?
It does, really, yeah, because a lot of people focus on the cruelty that we perpetrate on other animals when we use them, but that's not actually the root of the problem. The root of the problem is that we think we're superior to them, so we think that we can use them as commodities and as our resources. And we fail to recognise that on this earth, we're not the only living, feeling species with rights. There are all those other lives as well. And in fact, we only have one world to support all of us, and humans are destroying that world and its ability to support life very quickly. So, yeah, that just captures us, it does.
I couldn't disagree with you, because the more I live, the longer I live, the more I despair at what's going on this planet of ours from many, many perspectives. You have been a campaigner for many's a day in this particular area. Do you feel that your message is getting across to people? Do you feel at times, Sandra, that you're a voice in the wilderness?
Yeah, we can. Sometimes, yeah, for sure. A lot of people contact us to say that when they see our ads or when they hear media interviews, what they've learned is something that they never heard of before, and it's made them think and made them research, and many of them go on to be vegan. So that's really heartening for us. Also, even though it makes life very difficult for us, we face an uphill battle with interference from the industry, the animal use industries, particularly the animal agricultural industry. Every ad that we manage to get up on a billboard, we have to climb a mountain to get there, with advertising agencies refusing to believe the facts we present to them. Even when we give the scientific references so that they can check them for themselves. A case in point is we've two ads running at the moment in Ireland and in Glasgow, Birmingham and London. If you would not swap places with her, be vegan. And they show, one of them shows a slaughtered lamb hanging upside down with the blood coming from the cut on her neck. And the other one shows a piglet being carried into slaughter, absolutely terrified. And we were told that we couldn't run those ads in the UK. They're running in Ireland, no problem. But we couldn't run them in the UK unless we removed the distressing image of the pig and the blood. And to us, it just shows that if we can't look at the price that we inflict on other animals when we choose not to be vegan, if it causes us so much distress that we can't look at it, surely the solution is not to get an organisation like us to sanitise the image, but to confront our own behaviour and our own thoughts about other animals. If it's so objectionable, we shouldn't be doing it.
I know a lot of people listening to us today will say, look at, they respect your views, etc. But we live in a country, as you mentioned there, where, meat is a big part of what we consume, what we produce as well. And the same in the UK and these islands, and we export it all over the world. And people wonder, well, it's humankind. It's been like this for centuries, from the dawn of time. What do you say to that?
Well, there are lots of things that we've done for centuries, and it doesn't make it right. You only have to look at the war in the world at the moment to know that the length of time we've been doing something does not make it morally acceptable. I appreciate that Ireland is a production country, but it's not in the interest. First of all, we know that it's not in the interest of other animals to have an animal agriculture industry or any animal use industry. Neither is it in the interest of the farmers, because there's no future in this, Gerry. The emissions in Ireland from the agricultural sector are the highest of any other sector. They far outpass the sectors that we usually think of, like residential, energy and transport, we think that they're the biggest emitters. But the emissions from our food industry are nearly 40%, more than double any of those other industries. And we're not alone, because the global emissions from food are almost 35%. And some of the ads we're running at the moment actually carry that theme to get a good understanding of how damaging animal agriculture and the consumption of animal products is, the production and consumption of them are. We only have to look at the studies that show the benefits of consuming a vegan diet, and we would reduce our emissions by 77% if on a vegan diet, and we'd actually reduce our methane emissions by 93.5%. And that's why the COP is on at the moment, and we see the floods in Spain, and people are talking about fossil fuels, and everybody readily accepts that we need to abolish the fossil fuel industry. But very few people are aware that the animal agricultural industry contributes such a huge amount of harm. In Ireland, we find that 85% of us are worried about climate change, but 67% of us are not aware of the emissions coming from the animal agriculture sector. And they could be reduced radically on a vegan diet. And what it would do in particular is there are two emissions, methane and nitrous oxide, that are very high from the production, in particular, of animal flesh and dairy. And if people went vegan, and reduced those emissions, as I said, the most recent study showed we'd reduce our methane emissions by 93.5%. That would allow us to, this is a very easy thing to do, and it would allow us to catch our breath while we deal with other sectors like the fossil fuel industry, how we heat our home, how we travel to work.
Okay, and can I put this to you? Like, a lot of the farming community tuned into us today, and they think, what is that woman talking about? Because of a dependence on poultry, pork, lamb, and beef. Look at the amount of jobs it creates in the country, the export of it, the money it brings back into Ireland. How could we just switch that off in an instant and, replace it with something that would sustain the jobs, sustain our communities? You know what I'm talking about, like economically?
Yeah, sure. And they are the questions the farmers are asking, because they're being fed myths and lies by lobbyists. The Irish farmers are being told that they need to increase their production so that we can feed the starving world, in inverted commas, and that Irish production is sustainable. But it's not. Antashka did a study there in 2019, and they found that the production of animal flesh in Ireland is the most carbon intensive in Europe.
But come back, Sandra, come back to the point for me. Just come back to the point for me. How, think about this, and you live in a rural area yourself there, you look around you. How can we just stop this and stop it quickly? I don't think it's possible, to be honest with you, or practical. And what do we replace it with? What is going to replace it? Again, I ask you that, to sustain the jobs, to sustain the communities, and sustain the economy from an agricultural point of view.
Two answers to that. One is to transition to a plant-based system, and two, it's not sustainable, because any financial benefits, however immorally they come to us, the financial benefits to the country are going to very quickly be wiped out by the climate fines when we fail to meet our targets. So there's no advantage to it whatsoever. If the lobbyists were interested in the individual farmers so that they could earn a decent living and pass the farms on to their children in a sustainable way, they would be encouraging them to transition to non-animal agriculture.
Okay.
So solar panels, the production of hemp, oats. There was a while there you couldn't get oat milk. People were paying through the nose for oat milk because the companies making the most popular milk didn't have enough oats. We grow fantastic oats in this country, and we're not harnessing that resource at all. And I would say even farmers should be supported to just simply stop and rewild their land. They should be paid to just stop and rewild their land rather than continue digging a bigger hole for ourselves.
I suppose that, and again, how you would fund that, that's a bigger question for another day. I just want to move on to something. People will say, and I was just looking at the percentages, there's 8.025 billion people living on this planet now. It's reckoned that about 4% of the world population are vegan, 11 to 15% vegetarian. So it is sizable when you talk about 8.025 billion people. The lifestyle, and you live it, people will say, well, you need your dairy and your meat and all that type for your iron and vitamins and all that stuff, and if you don't have it, you're going to really, suffer health-wise. How are you feeling, Sandra?
I'm feeling great, Gerry. A little bit older than when we first met. But, it's a myth that you need animal products for human health. And this is a myth that's been sustained by a very, very corrupt industry. They go into the schools and educate young children with this idea that animal products are normal, natural, necessary and nice, and they're not any of those things. You can get all the nutrients you need on 100% plant diet. And one of the perceptions that people have, very often when I talk to people, they say, God, it must be very difficult to be vegan. It's not very difficult to be vegan, especially if you have in your mind the price that other animals are paying when we're not vegan, and the intersectional harms that it causes to humans through environmental destruction, climate change and some of the health effects as well. But there are lots of nice replacements on the market now that weren't there when I went vegan 17 years ago. And as long as people are aware of the nutrients they need, some really important ones like B12. The reason that we have these nutrients in animal products is that farmers are supplementing the diets of the animals. Yeah. I know they are, because we run a sanctuary and we're feeding the same supplements and the same food to the animals here. So that's how they end up being in the animal products. But you can eat fortified food or you can take a supplement, particularly something like B12 is really important. People who eat a whole food plant-based diet are generally healthier on a number of markers than people who consume an omnivore diet, but it's certainly nutritionally adequate, and you don't have to give up anything. There are really good products on the market now. Most of them, unfortunately, are not available in the south of Ireland. We go up to the north for the really nice ones, or some of them you have to buy online. It might be a little bit more difficult, but it's very wrong to say that other animals should be bred and commodified and used as resources and caused to suffer and die to cater for our taste buds and our convenience, particularly when it's not even good for us.
Sandra, I want to tell listeners, you left in a steak for me recently that is vegan, and I want to tell you this. I didn't get a chance to cook it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to park that, and I'm going to cook it in the near future and bring it back, and I'll tell you what I feel about it when I consume it myself. I want to be absolutely honest with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, because it is interesting.
Yes, it is.
Those products are not essential, but they're definitely a help.
Yes. So
I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. I promise you I will do that, and our listeners as well. But for today, I say again, I always respect you and respect your views as well. And I thank you for joining me to mark World Vegan Month in November. I'll be talking to you again soon, Sandra.
Take care, Gerry.
Take care. Bye-bye. That's Sandra Higgins there. It is World Vegan Month, and she is founder of Go Vegan World and Eden Farmed Animal Sanctuary.